Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. The world is a much better place, time for looking ahead. Let's talk about writing. Okay, today I want to talk real quick.
But it's never really quick, is it?
But I want to talk about dialogue in stories. We've all read some sort of book or short story or any kind of story or script even where there's just too much dialogue. Like sometimes you gotta lay off. You gotta get up off of that. So how much dialogue is too much dialogue? Well, being someone who's written too much dialogue in a book before, I think I have a pretty good explanation for how much dialogue is too much dialogue. Okay, so in my first book, it was called Keepers the Bond. It was meant to be the beginning of a long series of novellas. And what I ended up doing was putting that one with the second one and making them into a novel. And then I was starting to write the second novel. And I kind of froze and I abandoned it. But I haven't really abandoned it. I still have it on my flash drive and I plan to finish writing it because I did have like 50 downloads from Kindle on Keepers the Bond. But they never read Keeper's Blood of the Fallen. Keeper's Blood of the Fallen was actually the better book of the two. And when I mixed them together, nobody got that book because I think they fell off of Keepers the Bond because Keepers the Bond had too much dialogue. So let's talk independent writers. Too much dialogue can be defined as dialogue that seems redundant to the reader. And what I mean by that is dialogue that seems like it's dialogue that seems like it's like a repeated thing, like it's just repeating the action of the story. If the dialogue is just repeating the action of the story, then it's worthless. It's a worthless piece of dialogue because your dialogue is supposed to progress the story, not repeat what is happening in the story. So, for example, right, you have little Johnny and little Susie, right? And they're walking down the street singing do I diddy diddy dum diddy damn do. Okay, so what are their names? John and Susie? We'll just call them John and Susie. I don't remember what I said their names were. So they're walking down the street and Susie stops and picks up a candy bar and she says, "Hey, look, Johnny, I picked up this candy bar." Why would you say that? Why would Susie say, "Hey, I picked up this candy bar"? Now, in real life, I will grant you this. Sometimes people actually commentate and they narrate what they're doing for some strange reason. Like right now, for example, I could be sitting here and I'm saying, "I'm talking to you guys on the camera today." I'm obviously talking to you guys on the camera. That's what I'm doing. But if you've already said Susie sees a candy bar on the ground, she stops and picks it up. Susie no longer has to say, "Johnny, look at this candy bar." You could just say, Susie runs up and shows the candy bar to Johnny. Because she doesn't need to say anything. She could just run up and say, "Look." Or she could just run up and go, bam. She doesn't have to say a word. She can, but you can also limit that. She can run up and say, "Hey, look." End of that. You don't have to say, "Hey, look, Johnny, I found this candy bar." No, that's too much. That's too much dialogue right there. You've already messed up. You've already fell off the wagon on dialogue. Okay? Another thing I've mentioned in a past video about dialogue is if your dialogue can be taken out of your story and replaced with an explanation of what is happening instead, would your story still work? And if your answer is yes to that question, then your dialogue is irrelevant. You don't need it. Just drop it and move on. Drop it, add the action, obviously, and then move on from it because you don't need that dialogue. That dialogue is pointless to have. You need to limit your dialogue as much as you can. But I will say this about dialogue. It is very important. It's one of the most important things about writing a story of any kind. If you have characters who are going to talk, the dialogue is so important, because if your dialogue is not on point, your characters' personalities won't be on point. You need your dialogue to match the character 100%, and it just has to come out as genuine and authentic. And that's what helps bring your characters to life. And your dialogue is so important, and that's one of the reasons why too you have to limit it. Because once you get into the habit of putting a lot of dialogue into your story, you have made your characters seem oversaturated with information. So readers are reading it and they feel like they could go out into the world and be your character because they have been talking. You take all the mysteriousness, God, you take all the mystery out of your character and you just kill it. Like it just doesn't work anymore, and it just feels like it's too much on a reader. You know what I'm saying? Most people who read books are very intelligent people, and they can even tell you that you've written too much dialogue in your story. For me, my wife is an avid reader. She is a book addict 100%. Follow her on Litzy. You can follow her on Litzy. Her name is The Book Addict on Litzy. She is an avid reader, and she reads all the time. And she read my first book, Keepers the Bond. And she told me straight up, it's too much dialogue in this book. And at first, I took it to heart because I was like, oh my God. I couldn't believe that she would tell me my book has too much dialogue, because I didn't have a clue about book structure. Like, before I started writing, I'm going to be honest, I was not a big reader. I started reading like a lot more after I started writing, after that book, and after she told me there was too much dialogue. Then I started reading for the sake of reading, because I need to see how people do these things. And I got my ideas of dialogue from not only my courses in college, but also Stephen King. And the thing I like about Stephen King is that he doesn't pull punches when it comes to his dialogue. His dialogue is very he may use a lot of dialogue in his books, but his books are long. You know what I'm saying? So he still keeps it. If I had to guess, I would say his dialogue is probably 25% in his book. That's pretty damn good if you think about it, because my first book, Keepers the Bond, dialogue was at probably like 60% of my book, and it was just ridiculous. I look back at it now and I'm like, I can't believe I wrote that. Keepers Blood of the Fallen was a lot less dialogue, but it still had plenty, and it just worked. I loved writing Keepers Blood of the Fallen because the story just worked. It just worked. And I started telling people, because I was so embarrassed about how much dialogue I had in Keepers the Bond, that I started telling people that I wrote that book. It was supposed to have a lot of dialogue because you were supposed to witness the bond between the two main characters, which is true, but the dialogue was overpowering. Like, it was too much dialogue. It was way too much. And I started telling people that just to try to take the heat off of me for writing so much dialogue, but it wasn't really true. I could have wrote that story without so much dialogue. Blood of the Fallen, though, oh my God, I love that story. So I put the two together, and I created Keepers, the Kavarian Prophecy. And when I did that, it made it work, because then I had the two books together, which created a novel. And then that 60% of Keepers the Bond became like 25-30% of the book. So then my dialogue was still a little too much, because Keepers the Bond, I didn't change it. I kept that dialogue. It was still too much dialogue in the beginning, just because it's the first book. It was the beginning of the novel after I put them together. And it still is too much dialogue, but it works now because it's a part of a bigger project. And I'm getting off topic. Anywho, dialogue is important. It's so important, in fact, that when you write a story, if there's no dialogue, usually I will not even read it. I am not a publisher or an agent or anything like that, but I am someone who likes to read. good stories. And if there's no dialogue, and I noticed that for like the first 40, 50 pages, there's just no dialogue, I'm not reading that book. I'm done. I quit. Because I need to hear some interaction. I need to see some interaction. I say here because I'm so into audiobooks. I'm a narrator and I listen to audiobooks frequently. But reading books, if there ain't no dialogue in the beginning, man, I ain't trying to continue with this. I need to see some dialogue within the first 30 pages, like for real. But don't. Okay, general rule of thumb for those who have never written a book, and I'm gonna leave it at this. Space your conversations out as best as possible and put a limit on yourself and see if you can do it. If you can't do it, then you can't do it. You need to put the dialogue where you need to put it. But try this. 2 conversations per scene. 2 short conversations. Don't make dialogue last 3-4 pages. Don't do that. 2 short conversations per scene. So you would have blah 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 blah. End it. And then action for like the next page and a half, 2 pages, right? And then before that scene's over, and then end it. And then action. Go to the next scene. Do the same thing. If you can write a scene without dialogue and you feel like that scene is just, oh yeah, then fine. You did a good job. Congratulations. Too much dialogue is really about how much you feel is too much dialogue. But as a beginning writer, we usually don't know that it's too much dialogue. And hopefully this video has helped a little bit. It's really just to your eye. You have to be trained to be able to see how much dialogue is too much. And I hope that this video will help you kind of get to a place where you feel comfortable saying, okay, that's too much dialogue, or okay, that's not enough dialogue, because sometimes it's not enough. Give the readers dialogue, but give the characters some mystery. Keep it like that and you won't have too much dialogue. And you can always find a beta reader. Myself, personally, horror, fantasy, not too long fantasy, science fiction, I'll read those for people. I'll beta read those if you want me to. You just gotta hit me up on Twitter. Lit Pusher. I'll beta read. I know I won't steal your work because I got my own work to worry about. I don't want your work. But that's it. That's all I got. 13 minutes. After editing, it's going to be less than 13 minutes, I hope. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Don't forget to tap the bell. Lit Push out. Hold up. Before you leave, please subscribe. Don't leave without subscribing. Okay? I need the subscribers. I need them. I need the subscribers. I got plenty of videos. I talk about everything. Okay? Just do me a favor. Subscribe. If you're on a desktop right now or a laptop, drag your mouse somewhere in this general vicinity so you can click on my face. That is going to take you to my channel so you can subscribe. Boom. Mind blown, right? Just do that. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the other side.